Okay, welcome to elementary statistics. This is going to be entirely online, I was informed a couple of weeks ago. So this is just an introductory video, mostly to talk about the syllabus and show you the resources that we have. So when you get into Blackboard, it should look something like what you're seeing here. And I want to keep this as simple as possible so that it's relatively easy to use, and some of this we'll talk about as we go further through the course. But for the moment, when you come in, the default page should be the syllabus, and hopefully this will come up without any problems if I click on it, at least in the video, I mean. But in the meantime, you'll see areas like announcements. There are not too many announcements at the moment, but I'll have some kind of introductory announcement before classes start. And after a few days, people have had a chance to look over the syllabus and so forth. I'll make this the default area which you see upon entering. That seems reasonable. Syllabus link, of course, will take us back to where we were. Discussion boards we'll talk about in a minute. My messages, I think this is going to be the easiest way to communicate, to keep everything organized. If you email my university email, things are going to get lost and I'm not going to see it probably. So if you want to talk about the course, just use the My Messages button. It should come up. It's relatively easy to use. Inbox, create message. I believe it will show you a list of people who's in the course and so forth. And I find it easier to use. Schedule of content, well, based on the WebAssign quiz dates, this is what we have at the moment. Most of these videos have yet to be made. I think we pick it up with about section 12, if I remember, using the ones from the spring, which I will augment with other resources. But the early half of these have yet to be done. And I should probably have some kind of link to WebAssign itself here, which I can put up if I remember to add that. I'll just make a note to myself before going on. And chi-square calculator, this won't be important until the very tail end of the course, and maybe I'll put up some other resources that you can use there. My content website, this is where the material has traditionally been organized for past semesters when we had class in person. If you're wondering why all this is not on Blackboard, it's just a carryover from when we had in-person classes, and hopefully when we will again sometime in the distant future. So we'll talk about how the content website is organized. But in the meantime, there's also a statistics Q&A board, the discussion board area for communicating through the course. Tried to snazz it up a little bit here. Based on spring, it doesn't get an awful lot of use, but I'm hoping that will change because this is where I want the communication between student and teacher and students and other students to take place. If you have questions that everyone will benefit from, then this would be the place to post them. Use my messages for things that are of a personal nature, issues, problems that you have, whatever they might be, things you wouldn't want other people to see. But if you have questions about content, post them publicly. That way I'm not answering the same questions 200 times, among other things. So this is where the communication area of the course will be. So generally the way the course is going to be structured is that you have the various videos to watch, which I will put up links to here. They're going to be on YouTube because I'm still using Game Bar to record these. And they turn out immensely big. I have a limited number of video editing software programs. So I'm just putting them up raw so that you have a nice high resolution on them, and Blackboard does not like the size of these at all. So I'm just putting them up on YouTube where hopefully they will remain. And so typically the way it'll work is you see we have a due date for the WebAssign quiz, so you'll want to be watching the video or videos that correspond to section 1, where I'll go over the content and so forth. And I'll put up some, but there'll generally be 1, maybe 2 if it's long, videos on presenting the content. And then whatever supplementary videos that need to go into special programs. This game bar will only let me open 1 program at a time, so I'm going to have to do this very creatively. At the moment I'm using Firefox, but as appropriate I use a photo program or maybe even Excel. And so I may have to break the videos up into shorter pieces depending on what programs I need to be recording. But we're not necessarily going to be using Excel, but it will make a nice place for me. It will make a nice way of me to present material. So typically you watch the video or videos corresponding to a section. You do the quiz by the due dates. Hang on a second. And as far as things you're responsible for, that will be the WebAssign quizzes and the WebAssign exams. So everything that you are graded on will be on WebAssign, either quizzes or exams. We'll talk about that when we go over the syllabus. So that's the general structure. You log in, you watch the videos, ask me questions about them on the Q&A discussion board, take the quizzes, take the exams, and that's pretty much everything as far as that goes. And we're asynchronous because with large classes it really can't be done any other way. I'm not using Zoom because for a math class I don't really see any benefit to you seeing my face staring at you while we're trying to go over stuff. I think it's probably a lot easier to do this by either scanning in, writing things up and scanning them in, or typing them up if they're more informational, and just putting them there. And as need be, I can throw on some shortwave files of my voice explaining things, which I can post here as well. And if you want to do the same, if you're capable of doing the same, and if Blackboard will allow you to put these up, there's probably constraints on how much we can put up here, but short videos or short sound files, any way of getting your point across. Typing is probably the easiest way, but yeah, I mean, however you want to do it, either typing or audio or uploading pics or uploading video. Again, I don't know how much video we're going to be able to get away with on Blackboard, but it'll be interesting to find out. So as far as general structure, that's the way it's going to work. And I check in every day, so if any questions, anything you want me to explain in detail further, this is not an exact science, and I'm not going to start these long videos over if I misspeak. So, well, learning curve, what can I say? As far as, okay, so we talked about the discussion board. As far as I say, the thing to understand here is that this is not designed to be an online statistics course. There is one of those for SUNY that's been operating for several years. It's a little bit more difficult than this, I would say, and a little bit more sink or swim. But this is designed to be an unfortunately adapted to online version of the traditional statistics class, and that's going to have certain implications. It means that everything is going to be presented as though we were having in-person exams and so forth, with an emphasis on how to compute things rather than how to look them up on the internet, which is how I would organize it if it were a statistics class that was designed to be online. But because this is merely an online presentation of our traditional lecture in-class exam, statistics class, that's going to have certain ramifications for a specific, especially for a statistics class. So the idea here is that it's a number crunching thing. You know, you want some kind of traditional calculator that's capable of doing square roots. And then we're talking about how to use the formulas to compute and get the answers we like. It's not a class that is designed to be just push these buttons and get your answers. Now, that being said, it is the honor system and all, but if you want to get the most out of it, you want to be learning how to compute the various things that we want to compute. It doesn't necessarily mean we've always got to do things the long way, and we'll talk about that, but you do want to understand what we're doing. So the emphasis is going to be on computation and understanding. And for the long haul, when we get to the practical part of the course, it's going to be on doing practical statistics problems rather than tiny bits and pieces, multiple choice, things of that nature. I will try to keep them more or less as as full practical statistics problems that you work out and show your work and so forth, at least as much as is possible in this format. I will ask you questions pertaining to if it's a multi-part question, and there may be a piece of the question that says write in this bit of the formula and so forth and so on. So it's going to be using formulas type of stuff. So that's the idea. You want to understand that this is an online presentation of a traditional in-class statistics course. It is very much not an online statistics course by design, which again would be more in the nature of find a website or an app that will enable you to compute this, that, or the other, and so forth and so on. But that's not the way this is going to work, because in 2 weeks I can't build up the course from scratch. So that's the idea. As far as the course itself, you'll find that it is very much backloaded. Here we go. That is to say, the important part of the course doesn't kick in until about section 10. Everything prior to section 10 is what I would call background information. You'll find the early sections to be somewhat disconnected in the sense that they are pieces of a puzzle. You've got to know how to do this, you've got to know how to do that, you've got to know how to do the other. They're not really building on one another. Here and there they ducktail around each other kind of nicely, but for the most part, these early sections are unrelated topics that are on the simple side. And then come about section 7, 8, we begin to see how these ideas fit together. So the course is basically broken into about 3 major pieces. We've got the basics, which is sections 1 to 6. We've got the theory of statistics, as I would say, how it's supposed to work, the ideas behind it, which is sections 7, 8, and 9. And then from 10 onward, we're talking about the practical part of statistics. When all said and done, this is really the stuff that matters. The final will probably pick up with about section 10, because this is the important part of the course. What you should understand is that this stuff is not going to make any sense unless we have done the early stuff first. So the early sections, sections 1 to 6 in particular, in a broader sense, sections 1 to 9, are designed solely so that the later sections will make sense. It does mean that the course builds on itself, and just because it's easy in the beginning does not mean it's easy at the end. In the first couple of sections, you're drawing bar graphs, and by the end of the course, you have absolutely no idea what's going on. So just be aware, it starts easy, but it doesn't stay easy. And sooner or later, everyone is going to get confused. That's what the discussion area is for. So just be advised, it is very backloaded. The early sections may seem a little patronizing, but we've got to do the work. They do get complicated later on. So that's all there is to say about that, I suppose. As far as my content website, well, I suppose the way this is traditionally organized for this course is that this is where you find the ideas and the content, and then the testing would be on WebAssign. Because the course has gone to, let me say that again, the ideas, the material, the things you want to learn are on my website, and then the testing, the things you are responsible for in a grading sense, are on WebAssign. This semester, of course, because we've gone to entirely online, we have this intermediate component. So the Blackboard will take the place of the physical classroom. So everything will be organized from Blackboard. Say again, the Blackboard will take the place of the physical classroom, with asking questions here instead of asking questions in person, and so forth and so on and so on. So it'll link out to WebAssign where you for the stuff you're graded on. It'll link out to my content website where the actual material still remains, but the heart of the course is here on Blackboard, and that's where we want to be communicating, either individually through my messages or publicly with the discussion boards. I have a basic free app forum area here that we can use for whatever we want to use for. I thought it would be nice to have a separate forum for general information about the exams. The due dates are up there, of course, but any general information you want to ask about the exam. And then on a sectional basis, if you've got questions on section 2, then post them in the section 2 area, and then people will know where to look. There is a schedule here. As I say, there are certain things you want to be doing by certain times. I mean, obviously, for instance, you want to have watched all the Section 3 stuff and have your mind around it by 9/7, for instance. But apart from that, we all learn at our own pace, so nobody will learn anything if you wait until 11:20 in order to start the course. Obviously, there's got to be due dates. But that being said, I mean, you can post any question you want in the discussion area at any time. If you're working ahead, feel free to ask questions about Section 12 tomorrow. Just don't expect a lot of engagement from other students. I'll be here. On the other hand, if you've got questions on Section 1 at the end of the course, that's fine too. So, there's no time limit on when you can use these areas, but of course, there is going to be a general presumption of where people are in the course at various points, if you want intelligent feedback from other students. And of course, obviously, if I respond to some question on Section 5 tomorrow, then there aren't going to be a lot of other students paying attention to the answers, but things to be aware of. As far as the syllabus goes, okay, cross your fingers. Hopefully you'll be able to see this if I click on it. Yeah, I think you will. Let's see, zoom it up a bit. Okay, so scroll bars within scroll bars. I don't know why everybody continues to think this is a good idea. Elementary statistics. My name, Dr. John Reque. This is typically where I would have our classroom, but, well, what can I tell you? Oh, no, this is typically where I would have my method of communication, email, whatever. In the past, I've created a Yahoo email account to communicate with students efficiently, but now it'll be the My Messages on Blackboard. My office, Earth Science 132H, good luck with that. My courses, being large, are entirely online. I will physically be stopping in from time to time. I believe my understanding is that the way the department wants me to do this is to make myself available in person in my office, sealed in cellophane or some such thing, to talk to students if I can breathe. And so we'll organize that somehow. I haven't put up anything formal on that. My thoughts at the moment were turning to one day a week, say Fridays 12 to 4, but that's not official yet, and I'll keep you posted on that. I want to keep that kind of freestyle. It's a long drive, so if there's not going to be a lot of demand for it, then I'm not going to make myself available all that much. But if people want to be seeing in my office all the time, then I will make the effort and I'll drive in 2-3 times a week if that's what people want. So my thoughts at the moment, we're turning to 1 day a week for gas purposes, Fridays 12 to 4-ish, Friday afternoons. But I'm totally flexible on the day. I'm totally flexible on the time. As you may have guessed, I have no other appointments. So I'm pretty much free all the time when I'm not sleeping or recording or uploading. That's the nasty part. So as far as that goes, this is typically where the classroom would be. So there's our classroom. And, well, the section number, if anybody's greatly interested, and so forth. Homework, practice problems not to be collected will be assigned as we finished each section, and their detailed answer keys as well as PDFs. Well, like I said, you watch the videos. This has been adapted from my previous syllabus, and I think I've done that successfully, but if there are any lingering references to us meeting in person or so forth, just be aware that they have not been entirely excised. But typically you watch the videos, you check out the practice problems. You don't necessarily need it in 2 tabs here, but you check out the practice problems for each section. Let's take a typical section, section 8. And then there are various questions to practice on, which if you've watched the videos and if necessary ask me questions about them, should make sense. And typically there's a fair number of questions to practice on. These are questions that either I have designed or questions that I've culled from other books whose wording I have liked. So they are designed solely for practice purposes. And they should give you, because of what I just said, they should give you a relatively good idea of the kinds of questions you can expect on the exams. So typically you have the questions you can practice on, you give them a try, and then you can check your answers. There is a detailed answer key for every section, which not only gives you the answers, in this particular one in yellow, but also works them all out in detail so that you can follow the steps. None of this will make any sense at the moment. I mean, the actual math here, but you get the idea. And also, all of my class notes have been online for several semesters, so I was more than prepared for whatever the heck that was last spring. But this is what I'll basically be doing, as I'll do videos centered around the presentation of these class notes. Now, these class notes were originally designed to be summaries of what I said in class. So the videos will be slightly more complete. That is, I'll be saying more things than you see on the screen, but I will be talking over these notes basically. So I will augment these the way I would in class. These were originally designed to be summaries of my class notes, not necessarily complete class notes, but summaries of my class notes. So the videos will go into more detail. And if there's anything that can't be done with a combination of words and what you see here, then I will create some additional videos one way or the other, which will probably involve writing things up, scanning them in, and talking through the problems. And I can certainly do that kind of thing for any questions that you have. So this gives you an idea of what you can expect. I want to keep this on the simple side for obvious reasons. Nothing is more annoying than a website that is totally cluttered and impossible to use. So this is designed to be very, very simple. There are some PDFs, but that's about as complicated as this is going to get. And it has grown up gradually over the years, so it's not necessarily the way I would have it organized if I were doing it all from scratch. And after what you've seen, problems, answer keys, class notes, highlights, as I say, because that's the way they were originally designed, but call them class notes. we have various statistical charts. My operating presumption is going to be that you do not necessarily have a statistics textbook. If you're on WebAssign, then you have an ebook, but you'll probably never use that either. We'll talk more about textbooks a bit later. So I've designed my content website to have pretty much everything that you needed to have to do the stuff. The course is entirely self-contained between Blackboard, my website, and for testing purposes only, WebAssign. So we've got whatever statistical charts we might need. Again, it's probably not going to make an awful lot of sense at the moment, but when we talk about it, it will. And other statistical charts. Again, this is the kind of thing you need. As I say, this has been designed to be an online version of my traditional statistics course, which would presume that you were in class without taking exams in person, without any sophisticated statistical software, maybe just a scientific calculator. So it's been designed to use charts rather than statistical functions, either on fancy calculators or online. So when we get to these sections, we'll talk about some of the alternatives, of course. If you have an internet, which you presumably do, then if you're hearing me, then you have access to things that will do the work of charts with a punch of a button. But just be aware I'm going to be presenting the material in more of a traditional manner with the presumption that you're using charts. Now, we'll talk about that when we get to the parts of the course where it matters. The only thing that greatly concerns me is that charts are less accurate than some other methods would be. I mean, answers to 4 places, for instance, rather than further. So there may be some close enough is good enough issues on WebAssign. I've tried to be very careful about this in picking and designing problems, but we've this semester gone to a new edition of the textbook, so there may be some issues with answers that are close but not being accepted by WebAssign. Any issues along those lines, feel free to ask me. Just shoot me off a message, and I can pull up your online stuff and check it out and make a judgment call on it. Now, there is one particular part of the course where we've got to be very careful about close enough being good enough. And apart from that, in general, be very careful about obeying any rounding instructions you're given. You know, if they say they want the answer to 4 places, then give the answer to 4 places, and try to avoid any rounding on top of rounding on top of rounding, which will take your answer further away the longer it goes on. But the point is that's all in our future. The point at the moment here is that we've got whatever charts and links to calculators we might need. I've kind of surrendered on the chi-square thing, so there's some calculators. I think both of these links are probably broken at this point. Yeah. But there is a working one online, as I said. In fact, one of these may actually be broken. We're not going to talk about this until the very, very end of the course, so I wouldn't worry about it. But the point is we've always got charts. Sample exams, again, these are designed for a physical in-class exam, so your mileage may vary on WebAssign, but it gives you a good idea of what I have asked in the class and what I've considered to be important. Now again, this is all kind of grown up organically, not by design necessarily, so my emphasis was on having sample exams for the latter part of the course. And then on WebAssign under class resources, at a different point in time, I put up some sample exams for the early part of the course. Again, this is all back when we were having physical classes. So between here and class resources on WebAssign, you'll find some sample exams and other documents. But again, they were physical in-class exams. In fact, I think all they are basically is answer keys for old physical in-class exams. So the questions are there, the answers are there, all mixed together. But nevertheless, it gives you a good idea of what I've considered to be important in semesters past, and in going to online exams, I have kept the format as much as is practical. Online quizzes on WebAssign. We'll talk about WebAssign. I wonder what'll happen if I click this link. Well, it'll take you to my login information, which is not very helpful, but gives you an idea. There's a formula sheet here as a PDF. Again, probably not a lot of this is going to make any real sense at the moment. I'm assuming you probably know how to average numbers together, but we'll talk about that. And, well, pretty complete for the course. We never get to section 23, so I think we'll leave it at section 22 if I recall correctly. So it's pretty complete as far as that goes. And, well, there you go, my content website. Now, what does that leave? Just going over the rest of the syllabus. So the idea here was to give you an idea of the problems you have to practice on. Watch the videos, try the practice problems, stumped on them, check out the answer keys for them, questions on them, ask me. The idea of the WebAssign quizzes is that they're not designed to teach you the material. They are not designed to be comprehensive on what's important for each section. They are designed to test your knowledge of things you have already absorbed. So use the practice problems. The answers are all entirely there. They're not to be collected or anything. You're not responsible for them. But use the practice problems to get the hang of the material, and then once you've got the hang of the material, have a go at the WebAssign quizzes. The WebAssign online quizzes can be taken as many times as you want until the due date, and I will count the highest. Just so that I'm not a liar, I believe there is a technical limit of 100 attempts. You can go through that a lot faster than you would think if you are using your attempts creatively to answer multiple choice questions. So just be aware, there is a practical limit of 100 attempts. It sounds like a lot, but if you're gaming it, it really is not. The exams, you get one shot at those. Exam 1, Exam 2, Exam 3. Our semester is a bit psychotic because I guess they don't want anybody leaving the campus unless they're sealed in cellophane. So our semester starts a bit early. We have absolutely no holidays whatsoever, not even an afternoon off. And then it ends right before Thanksgiving. And then the powers that be, in their blissful naivete, assume that you will remember everything after your Thanksgiving vacation, just in time to be tested on it. So that's going to be interesting. I'm sure we won't do this again in a hurry. So calculator, well, again, this is all, not to beat it to death, but that ship has sailed anyway, so here goes. This is an online version of the traditional in-class statistics exam where my only requirement would have been a basic scientific calculator in order to take exams. The idea is not to find the statistical buttons. The idea is to learn how to compute things using a basic number crunching calculator. So that is my operating assumption there. If you've got a computer, you've got a calculator. Better off. We're not going to talk about Excel too much, but and I'm not going to assume you're using Excel at any point or any other spreadsheet program, but the best advice I could give anybody taking any kind of math or chemistry or physics course is, or anything that involves any kind of calculation, is take 10 minutes to learn to do basic calculations in Excel. It'll make your life a lot easier than any kind of other calculator you might be using. If you're online, you've got a spreadsheet program of some kind probably. And they all work pretty much the same. But nevertheless, my operating assumption and my way of presenting things is going to be that you've got some kind of basic scientific calculator that can do square roots and powers. Grading, 28% for each exam for a total of 84%. I would hate for that to be wrong, so double check. 28 times 3 sounds right. So 28% each for online exams. That is to say, a total of 84% for the exams. If you read through this, it is highly unlikely that I am going to code additional exams or delete exams that I have taken the time to encode. So, but theoretically, there could be, I could add exams. Theoretically, I could delete exams. It is highly unlikely to happen because we are entirely online. It's not like we're going to have snow days. Well, I suppose we could lose internet. Oh, on a related note, they are, let's see, I don't see the word here anywhere. Here it is. On a related note, they are due dates, not due dates, right? So if you have not even tried the exams or quizzes until 11:50 the night it's due, and then you suddenly have some kind of computer issue, just be aware that my sympathy is going to be extremely limited. They are DUE dates, not DO dates. You have plenty of time to try those. So this just basically says what I said before. 16% for the online quizzes, 84% for the exams, divvied up however many ways, but there's no reason it won't be anything other than 3 ways. So 28, 28, 28, 16. I will drop the lowest 5 online quizzes, so they're not designed to be stressful, but, well, let me put it this way. You do not want the 5 quizzes that get dropped to be the first 5. Trust me on this. As far as, well, okay, so this gives you an idea of how things are weighted when we compute a final numerical grade for the course. Out of 100, any numerical course average, average in the sense described directly above, of 90 or above is some kind of an A, 80 or above is some kind of a B, 70 or above is some kind of a C. Beyond that, I'll do it with the quartiles. I'll explain quartiles in section 2. But at least the top quarter of the class will get some kind of an A, at least the next quarter will get some kind of a B, at least the next quarter will get some kind of a C. Typically, I'm a little bit more generous than that, but you can at least bank on that. So if you're in the top half of the class, you get at least a B minus. The course will be organized from Blackboard. You may have noticed linking to WebAssign for evaluation and to my website for class content. On Blackboard, you'll find a syllabus, announcements, links to content, videos, and a schedule for when everything is due. Well, the only thing that's not there at the moment is the links to the content videos, because, as you may have guessed from the sound of my voice, I'm still making the first of them. That being said, I do have the videos from the latter half of the course when we unexpectedly went online in the spring. And what can I tell you? Statistics has not substantially changed since the time of Napoleon. So I am not necessarily going to re-record those with anything more topical about coronavirus or whatever it's now being called. But statistics is statistics. It's not going to change. Math is math, as Mr. Incredible said. So just be aware that they may get a bit, what's the word I'm looking for, anachronistic when you get into section 12 or so. I think it's section 12. But the latter half of these videos are all done already. Doesn't mean I can't add stuff, put up some more content, go over problems, all the other sorts of things we would do anyway. But the basic content videos for the latter half of the course are already done. And if I put up the links for those, it'll just confuse people like crazy, of course. So I think I will add them when the previous ones are done. Let's see, where were we? The syllabus, which I somehow lost. Here we are. There we go. So there you go. And as far as WebAssign goes, the URL for the WebAssign is right here. I will try to remember to add a WebAssign button over here. I think it'll help. The class key for the course is Albany 4977 7198. It is not going to be too exciting if we try to log in at the minute. Log in, sign in, stay in, be in, wait for it. I've got a lot of classes here, and this one is still in our future, but when you get in, it should look something absolutely nothing like this. There you go, more or less. So the other class is not started yet. There is a grace period for your access, your individual access to WebAssign. It's like 2 weeks from the start of the class, I believe. So for that reason, the class does not officially start until 8/22. It has come to my attention that there is a system glitch that is now allowing people to access the class early with the class key and your own access. Just be aware that if you get in before 8/22, then that's going to start the clock on your 2-week grace period. Now, if you've got your access code, it's no big deal, but if you're working off your grace period, you don't want it to expire a week into the course. So, or whenever I upload this video. So, just be aware, your 2-week countdown on your grace period starts when you log in. Theoretically, that shouldn't start until the 22nd, but it will start earlier if you log in earlier, and there's no point because you're not going to see anything other than this. In particular, the assignments are not going to become available until 8/22, Saturday before classes start. My class insights area. This is an area that is here because there is absolutely no way of getting rid of it. I have never used it and never will. Communication, all the communication will be on Blackboard, so never mind that, but you will see assignments under My Assignments as they become available. Now again, this course is entirely online and all the quizzes are ready to go and most of the exams. So as far as the online quizzes go, they should all pop up when the course becomes available. The exams will become available and visible to you a week before they're due. Grades, let's see, there's a grade tab here, which is not going to be terribly exciting if I click on it, but just be aware there are tabs up here. This is relatively new, and like I said, these things evolve organically, so this is maybe a little bit vestigial. It's probably this they want you to be using now, but you'll figure it out. Announcements, I'm not going to bother with the announcements area this time around because we've got the announcements on Blackboard. The gradebook, however, will be on WebAssign for obvious reasons. Transferring over 200 people's grades on a regular basis from WebAssign to Blackboard when all the grades are on WebAssign anyway would serve no purpose, particularly when people are using different names and so forth and so on, and that's always a nightmare. So our gradebook will be entirely on WebAssign. That is to say, the grades for the exams and the quizzes will be available on WebAssign under Gradebook. And I believe, I will double check, I believe that I've weighted those properly in WebAssign 8416. Even so, they're probably not going to be exactly right because I will weight all quizzes the same. That is to say, percent average on the quiz, average them together. WebAssign will do it on point value, So if one quiz is worth 50 points and one quiz is worth 25 points, it's going to do it by points, and that's incredibly irritating. There doesn't seem to be any way of preventing WebAssign from doing that, so I would ignore any total columns. They are probably not remotely relevant. But nevertheless, the exam grades and the quiz grades will be there. And the formula for putting them together is not terribly complicated. 0.84 times the exam average plus 0.16 times the quiz average. And you can get a numerical average yourself. Again, bearing in mind that that won't, strictly speaking, be relevant until all three of the exams are in, and I will drop the lowest five of the online quizzes, but you get the idea. Now, for reasons best known to the psychiatrists of the people who designed WebAssign, they've decided to default to having this resource area closed. A lot of people don't discover it because, what can I tell you, WebAssign coders are idiots, as demonstrated by this inability to get rid of this area here, no matter how many times I ask for that functionality. But yeah, the resource area is here. It just defaults to closed because, of course, it does. Oh, again, this has grown up organically over the years, so some of this stuff is on my website, and now, of course, some of it is on Blackboard. But this is some earlier, or in some cases, later stuff. This is sample exam 1 and sample exam 1 answer key. Again, a physical in-class exam is what you're going to see here. Some documents that are relevant for very late in the course. This will be a handy summary thing to have for the latter half of the course. Some other examples that I've thrown up in class. And there's an ebook for the course. If you have the WebAssign access and the ability to take the quizzes and the exams for the course, which is probably important, then you have an ebook. So I am not going to be following our textbook remotely closely. So a physical textbook is just not worth your while. Let's see, what do I want? This. So although I do tell you what chapter of the book the various sections can be in, I think I kind of left off at the end, but I can certainly look that up if you're interested. Nevertheless, we are not following the book particularly closely. I'm doing this in a somewhat more organized, systematic way. The thing you should understand about statistics textbooks is that they're all bad. Calculus textbooks are all pretty good, and we generally follow them pretty closely in those classes. Statistics textbooks are all bad. I mean, there is nothing a $200 statistics book by a tenured professor trying to impress his peers rather than actually educate students can teach you that 5 minutes on YouTube or a Statistics for Dummies book cannot. My intention is to streamline this as much as possible, giving you only the bare essentials. The problem with all statistics textbooks, again, they're not written, all textbooks, without exception, they're not written to educate students, they're written to impress the peers of the people who write them. So they tend to be, and in particular, statistics textbooks tend to be mindlessly comprehensive. You know, for every one thing you need to know, there are 19 things that you don't need to know, and they end up intensely cluttered. The people who write them are very self-indulgent as a rule. So I'm streamlining this course and keeping it only to the bare essentials. If you've taken this course before, or if you have seen this type of material before, be aware that, you know, we could do this for 2 years and not do justice to everything in a course like this. So it is very much a picking and choosing thing, and my goal is to cut out as much as possible of the early stuff so that we can cover as much of the later stuff as possible and have it be understandable. So in particular, sections 1 to 6 here, and in a larger sense, sections 1 to 9, have been pared to the bone in an attempt to get to as much of the later stuff as possible. So we're not going to do advanced probability. There's a lot of things we're not going to do that you may or may not have seen in other versions of the course. Now, for an online course, this is less important than it was, but I think I beat that point to death. This is a last-minute adaptation of an in-class statistics course where time was essential. And even so, you don't want your time wasted with a lot of things that you don't need to know, apart from the fact that I can make you watch as much as I want you to watch, right? So I'm going to try to keep the content level to, I mean, I don't know about the exact count of minutes on the videos, but I'm going to try to keep the content level to what it would be in an ordinary statistics course. And because I'll have a lot of time when we get to the part where the videos have already been done, I'll add some supplementary stuff as necessary. So in that sense, it might be a bit much or a bit in excess of demands, but there'll be more than enough stuff available for you to look at. And there will be a main flow here, as I said, of the main video for the section if you want to just, keep it to the essentials. The bottom line is, can you do the practice problems? Can you do the online quizzes? And if both of those things are true, then you should not have too much trouble with the exams. I'm not the guy to give you a lot of surprises on the exams. A course like this very much tells you what you need to know. There is a sample quiz online. It's not part of your grade. It will ultimately not be part of your grade. The visibility issues may make it seem otherwise for a while, but it is obviously not part of your grade. Nobody cares whether you know what color the Emerald City was or what the first name of King George was. But it is worth a giggle if you want to check it out. It's a good way of making sure that everything is working for you before you take the stuff that actually counts. Statistics text, like I said, Introductory to Statistics, Data Analysis, Peck Olson DeVore, 6th edition. 6th edition is new this semester, so expect teething troubles. The people who design these textbooks are going out of their way to make it cumbersome for a physical in-person class. If we want to be naive about this, we'll say that they were very well prepared for what happened. But if we want to be cynical about it, we'll say they were expecting it. So to each their own. But they have put a lot of resources. They have made it a lot harder for the way that things are presented in the new edition have made it a lot harder if you are taking a physical in-class exam and don't have statistical software. They're trying to be helpful. They give you a lot of statistical software you can use. They call it SALT now. Just bear in mind that for a physical in-class exam with a pen and a piece of paper, those online statistical programs tend to be intensely counterproductive. It's not like I'm going to let everybody have a laptop on a physical in-class exam. So I do know what they were thinking. They were thinking they were going to impress the people at the trade shows, but it's not very helpful for a traditional type course. For us, of course, it couldn't really matter less, but I beat that point to death. I want to keep this as a course where you're taught how to do the statistics rather than where to find the answers on the internet. It's just not as helpful as the guys at the trade shows would seem to think. As for what's actually covered in the course like this, like I said, it's all pretty much here. I don't believe I'm doing section 23. I've never done it in a physical class, so it doesn't seem fair to give you more than we would have gotten to in a physical class. But let's put it this way. By the time you get to something like this, it's all variations on a theme, and pretty much anything else you would ever want to know about statistics. And again, we could go on for another 10 sections. Is not that hard to pick up because it is just variations on things we will have already talked about. See the website and my website for in-depth information. Now again, as far as what you can do here, you can go one of two ways. You can buy the textbook package, which will come with a physical textbook and the access code. I believe it's like a card with the access code on it. So you can buy the textbook access code package, or you can buy just the access code entirely online if you want, just with a credit card and a computer. However you do that, it will come with the ebook as you just saw. So I can't recommend you getting a physical textbooks, not for a statistics course. We're just not going to be following the textbook closely enough that you will likely ever get any use out of either the physical textbook or the ebook. But if you do want an alternate viewpoint on things, then the ebook is definitely going to suffice. Again, you'll probably never look at that either, because everything in this course is self-contained. So at no point am I going to assume nor recommend that you get a physical textbook. Of course, that's the more expensive route. Now, to each their own. If you're trapped in one of these bad 80s movies where the guy has got to spend so much money in order to get more money at the end of the movie, then have at it. But the cheapest route will definitely be just buying the access code. As far as going through the steps to get into WebAssign, you log in, you make an account, and so forth. They'll make everything else as cumbersome as possible. But when you get to the page that says type in your credit card number, they'll make it very easy to use. Trust me. Alternately, you can buy it at the store and so forth and so on. You can buy it directly through WebAssign, and if you just start going through the pages here, then I'm sure they have a page where they say you can buy an access code right now if you like. Probably that would be the cheapest route. I want to say $90, but the prices keep changing, and it depends on where you're getting them. Uh, Anything at the bookstore is probably the most expensive route, right? I mean, you'll never have a better lesson in economics than buying textbooks, right? They are priced the way they are because they have a captive audience, but that's not as true as it used to be, fortunately for all of us. And events being what they are, it looks like it's not going to go in their direction anytime soon, right? Because, like I say, particularly for a statistics course, there is nothing that a physical $200 textbook can tell you that YouTube videos cannot. And of course, it's a question of tracking them down and organizing them and so forth. And one thing I should say is that we are picking and choosing topics here, and I am presenting things in one way rather than another way. Wherever things are done in different ways, I'll try to give you a passing reference to other ways things can be done or other names that things can have. But if you are watching YouTube videos that I haven't recommended to you, then just be advised that they may be doing things in a slightly different way than we are, and they may be using different terminology. As far as that stuff goes, I think I've made this point. This course is very backloaded, and when you get into the practical part of the course, we're talking section 10 onward. This is all pretty much standard from resource to resource, book to book, video to video, statistics for dummies, whatever, with some minor points which we will talk about, different ways things can be done. But for the early part of the course, where it's all background information, well, what can I tell you? Professors in general are pretty lazy, and math professors are no exception. So when they write these textbooks, first of all, nobody ever got tenure by saying, there's no need for me to write another textbook. The guy who wrote the last textbook got everything correct. End of story, right? So in order to justify their existence and the book they're writing, they've got to change everything, of course. So, but on the other hand, they are very lazy, so their efforts to redefine and present things in new ways and call things by new names never lasts past the first few chapters. So, things to be aware of. In a course like this, especially in the early chapters, different books are going to call things by different names. Means, averages, just one example which we'll talk about. Uh, every book has its own pet terminology for what things are called. But what you want to bear in mind, again, is that all of this is background information. And when you get to the practical part of the course, it really doesn't greatly matter what you call things in the early part of the course. You always want to stick to one way of doing things and stick with it. Otherwise, you're going to confuse yourself, and this is the way I've chose to do things. But just be advised that particularly for the early material, if you're looking at other resources, they can call things by other names and do things in other ways. we'll talk about a lot of that. I do address as many times as I believe it comes to my mind when things are called by different names and what I prefer to call them. So just things to be aware of. Again, in the early part of the course where it's relatively easy, you'll encounter a lot of this. But when it comes to the part of the course that you'll find challenging, there's not so much of that. It's all pretty standard. So one less thing to worry about when you're worrying about other things. So it all averages out. No pun intended. Yeah, I would recommend buying the physical textbook for a course like this, but to each their own. We're not going to be following it particularly closely. We're not going to be following it particularly more closely than we would any other statistics textbook. Let's see, keep track of an online quiz and exam due dates in your WebAssign account. I think I mentioned the thing about the sympathy. No extensions for any reason, but I will drop the lowest 5. If you need more than 5 online homeworks dropped, you've got other problems, because there's only something like 21, 22 of them. Oh, here's another link to my contact website right there. And this just explains what I've already explained. Student resources, I'll be checking the discussion board on Blackboard on a daily basis, probably in the mornings, but physical office hours, again, this is kind of up in the air at the moment. I do want to make appearances on campus, but I want to keep this a little bit flexible so until I know how much use I'm going to get out of them. It could be that nobody visits my office in person the entire semester, or there could be 3 people waiting for me every time I show up. I will be around as much as people need me to be around, but since it is entirely online, I'm not going to necessarily be driving in every day on the off chance that there's somebody waiting in my office. So the way my thoughts are turning at the moment is Fridays 12 to 4 in person at my office, or Science 132H for the moment. But I am totally flexible on that if other times work better for other people, or if you want to make an appointment. The one thing I would say about appointments is if you're going to make an appointment to come see me, show up. Because this is a 3 strikes thing. People cancel on me, and after people start canceling on me, I stop bothering to drive in and make appointments. So courtesy as far as that goes. I don't mind coming to the campus if there's somebody who wants to see me, but if I drive all the way into campus and the person doesn't show up, I'm not going to be hurrying to make another appointment. So I will be around as much as people want me to be around. I think we can probably do as much of this as we need to online. But if you are physically on campus, my wild guess is that they're not letting you get away. I think they probably have erected a barbed wire fence around the campus after you arrive. So if you want me in person, I can get through the barbed wire. So I'll show up. So as far as that goes, yeah, at the moment I'm thinking Fridays 12 to 4 for physical office hours, but I'm flexible on the amount of time, I'm flexible on the day of the week, I'm flexible on pretty much all of that. If there's some other time that will work better for people as a general rule, or if there are other times that people want me to show up, I'll come if there's people who want me to be there. Fine print, well, you can read about this, just ignore the stuff about firstborn, it's not important. And I believe that is everything. We're clocking in at 1 hour and 3 minutes. So this is going to be a pain to upload. So we'll start talking about all the other stuff in the next video. There's the background info for the course, and we'll start talking about the Section 1 material in the next video. You probably won't find Section 1 too scintillating, but time we have to serve. So next time.